just saying to Laverne and Judith that there's some type of, some kind of deep vibe this morning. I've been hearing since last night to really open up about forgiveness today. And it's such a profound experience. Of course, there seems to be a lot happening in the world, and I kind of tuned in a little bit just to see what's happening and seemingly happening. And the thing that people are chanting is, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And the other thing that struck me was a call out for mama. Call out for connection. A call out for love. And it's not his call, it's the call. It's not one person's call, it's a call that we all have, and the only purpose for us coming together in this small way is to answer that call, because it's not his call for love, it's your call for love. You have to bring it all the way back. And if that love feels pretty strong to you and you've been through a lot and you've uncovered a lot, then it's a call to go even deeper. Because there's so many subtleties to the ego, and there's so many mesmerizations of this seeming world, that just to be open to even a deeper and deeper experience of love. And there is no fixing what is on the screen. It's an impossible situation. But we can recognize it for what it is, which is, and we've talked about this. For those of you who've been here for the last few weeks, we've talked a lot about projection. And that once you understand that it is all a projection of the tiny mad idea, and it's playing out in all its horrific forms, and it will never ever change. It's never changed since the 60s. It's not changing. It won't change. It can only change when we change our mind, and that's what Jesus says in the Course in Miracles. And so if the Course in Miracles is your path, if it truly is your path, then there is a deep call right now to go deeper into the experience of letting go of what you think is real and true. And that takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of actually believing what the Course in Miracles is saying. They're not just words. Forgiveness isn't a word, it's just it's an experience, and forgiveness is the key to happiness. Jesus says it in the Course in Miracles, that forgiveness is the key to happiness. Okay, well then what the hell? Why would you look anywhere else? Forgiveness is the key to happiness. It's the key. And we have to put that key in the door of our own mind, the mind that's confused, the mind that lives with distortion and fear and separation and projection. We have to use that key to ever come into the experience of who we are, to ever become that natural flow of love and presence that is always there to uplift and inspire and bless. You become a blessing. The forgiven mind is a blessing to all. And so I think how I feel about everything that seems to be happening is it's a quickening. It can be used as a quickening because it's seen now. It's seen. Like before it wasn't as seen because we didn't have the technology. But that is also, everything is symbolic. It's just symbolic. There's nothing that isn't symbolic. And to look at everything as symbols is so helpful because you're either looking at it through the eyes of wanting that correction, that accepting the correction of forgiveness, or wanting to hang on to a story that is old and worn out. And there's a part in the Course that says that the world is weary now, and it is. But the world is within. The world that has been made by the ego is within. It's not true, but the forgiveness is the key to undo that lie. And so you have to check yourself. You have to check yourself all the time. Am I choosing to see through the eyes of truth, even though I may not fully understand what that is, or I may not have the full experience of that, but am I willing to take my steps? Because if there's something about the Course in Miracles that resonates in your heart, if it's truly sparking your heart and it's for you, then it's for you, then this is your path. Then this is what you've been given. Other people have been given other ways, other means. It's okay. It's all good. It's coming in so many different ways. But if the Course in Miracles has been given to you, it is a thorough and complete pathway to happiness. And so we have to ask ourselves all the time, what's standing in the way of that? What is standing in the way of that happiness? If I'm not happy, then what is it that I'm not forgiving? Because that is the only thing that stands in your way, is an unforgiven thought. It's impossible that it be anything else. Yes, it can look like it's 1,000 different things if you are identified with the ego's thought system. And you will stay in the loop. You'll stay looping, looping, looping. And I think we're all old enough that we've looped enough in this world. We've hit the highs, the lows, the in-betweens. There is a different experience that is available. That experience is a forgiven mind, and that experience is different than anything you've ever experienced before. It's peace. It's abiding peace. You can walk into a room, you can sit down, you can feel at home wherever you are. There's no anxiety, there's no stress, there's no concern, there's no thought about any of the drama that's being played out other than seeing that it's a call for love and answering that call for love. And isn't it so simple? It's love or a call for love. It's love or a call for love. It's not attack. If you see attack, you attack yourself. And so there's this very dramatic movie playing. And it's almost like I'd written a post on Facebook, and I quoted Byron Katie saying, how do you know that Hitler didn't bring more people to Christ than Jesus did? And there were some reactions to that. But what the context of that is that this pressure that we feel is our call for love. It is our call for our Father. It's our call for our Source. We've been confused for way too long. And so as we answer that call, and that has to be put into a framework that Jesus has so beautifully laid out for us, a framework that we can actually start to grasp, because our mind is so distorted, because we're so mesmerized by this reality, we think it's real. But when he says it's no more real than the dream you had last night, it's time to try that on. The argument you're having with your spouse is no more important than the dream you had last night. Don't you want to fall in love? Don't you want to allow the Spirit to give you everything? But everything is not in form, you see, and that's I think, I know for myself, I always thought if I just forgave enough, then the form would somehow reflect that. And that's not the truth. It's not about the form. It's about a state of mind. It's always about a state of mind. Jesus went to the cross to show us. He didn't resist. He didn't protest. He didn't try to make a case for himself. He didn't try to get other people to get it. He simply beamed out the love of his Father and forgave. Why? Because the movie that we're seeing is not the truth. It's just not the truth, not in any way, shape, or form, except for love. And you can't really focus on love because you are love, but if you can't feel it, if you don't have that as an actual experience, then these are why we're giving these steps. And the key to for happiness is forgiveness. It'll give you everything that you've ever wanted. If there's ever a threat of something not working out in the future, it's because you're not forgiving. It's because you think that something is going to give you something when you already have it. You already have it. You have it right now. It's not some carrot out in front of you that if you forgive enough, that finally God will let you back into the kingdom. And I think what certainly happened for me, was when I really got what projection was, I all of a sudden felt like I could forgive it. Where before I thought I was playing in the world with others, and we all had to be on the same page, and we all had to sit around the fire and sing Kumbaya. It's like it's so much bigger than that. It's like if you can see the projection for what it is, it's just playing out the tiny mad idea of separation, the distortion, the belief that we separated from our source, from our loving Father. So then it started to feel easier to me. It started to feel a lot easier to me when I knew that. I only knew it intellectually, but somehow it helped me to, and I had read it, for years. I'd studied the Course. I was a slow learner. It's all written, but until you start actually applying, then you don't have the experience, and you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the inner wisdom that, can assist in every moment. That's always there, it's always present. There's nothing more sweet, there's nothing more beautiful than presence. There's no new relationship, there's no new car, there's no new business, there's no new bank account. Presence is what we've been looking for. We've always been looking for it through all these distortions, all the wrong places and all the wrong faces. We've looked in the wrong places, but now there's no excuse other than just a choice that you want to continue to sleep. It's just a choice, and that's fine. But never think that happiness eludes you. You turn from it because you want to hold on to your opinions, you want to hold on to your judgments, and you want to hold on to this world. And that is the special relationship. It's a relationship of thinking I'm a real girl in a real world, and I got to wake up, and I got to be spiritual, and I have to forgive, and I have to, make sure that you understand me. And it's just stressful. Even wondering what somebody else is thinking, what somebody else is doing. It's like it takes you right into the unreality instead of into the reality. That's why it's so precious to stop, and that's why I think silence has been Such a big part of my path too is just this deep resting. And then of course dealing with whatever isn't resting within me. You can't just close your mouth and expect to find happiness, although it is a start. So the Spirit wants to give you everything, everything, everything. And if there's any thought that can be found in form, then you will continually loop around. And you may get a sense of relief for a moment, but that's the trick. When Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is within, we need to change the direction. We need to change the direction of our attention. It's so beautiful to come together, and the reason I like it is because I feel like there's a common prayer of our hearts to drop deeper and deeper into this truth. And whether it's, two people, maybe a group, maybe 500, 1,000, it doesn't matter. Whether you're by yourself with the Spirit, it's all the same. So, So the ones that have been here, the ones that have been coming here for a few weeks, just ask yourself this question. Because of my being here, have I deepened in my experience of forgiveness? Have I recognized something? Have I felt, instead of just coming and listening to words, have I really taken what's being offered and applied it? Because if you haven't, if there's no feeling, and you're just here again on a Saturday morning, I swear to you, I'm just not interested in that. Because I know what the invitation is. I know where it can take us all individually and together. Because when you heal, you don't heal alone. And so I am in full support of healing, because it's my own healing. And that's why we're available for anybody who has that true desire to lay something on the altar, to let something go. And for some reason, this is what Jesus says in the Course in Miracles: you can't go home without your brother. Okay, I've accepted that. I resisted it for a long time. I didn't think it was relevant. And sometimes it takes all the strength you have to let go of something that's got you, that's grabbed you. And I have been in that situation many, many times, where I have had all the evidence in the world that something needed to be done because something was so off. But it's a great experiment, I'll tell you that. It's a great experiment to start to experience what forgiveness can bring to you. If you think about it, forgiveness can bring you everything you think you've ever wanted. Everything you think you've ever wanted in form, forgiveness can bring you in experience. Because obviously we want these things because we think they're going to bring us something, when we already have it. But it's out of awareness because we think we need something. So there's really only one thing. There's only one concept of this world that can bring us home, and that's forgiveness. The rest of it really truly is a waste of mind energy. Unless it's being used for the purpose of healing and forgiveness, it is a waste of mind energy. It is a waste of time. We can use time. So that's pretty radical, you know. Everything is a waste of time unless it's based in this purpose. And then you can apply this purpose to everything, whether it's your work or whatever it is. You can apply it and use whatever the backdrop is that you will find yourself in for that forgiveness. And as you use that fully and completely, you will be lifted out. And you won't have to figure anything out. I'm telling you, you will not have to figure anything out. It will be figured out for you. Everything will be laid out in front of you. And if you solely focus on that function of forgiveness, which is our only function, everything will be given to you. Jesus says, you know, you'll have the things as long as you think you need them. There doesn't need to be some big ripping away. But as you focus, if you just focus, in the Course it says that the resurrection is the single call, the single desire from the Son to the Father. That's resurrection. Resurrection of the mind. Resurrection from the dead. From living like a dead, something dead in this world. This is a world of death. We want to resurrect into life, and so there is this single pointed purpose, and that's where the mind training comes in. That's where you have to really, really put it first. If you want true happiness, that's all. If you want true happiness. If you don't want true happiness, then there's really not much to talk about. It's like, it's just go ahead and play as long as, until you get really, really weary of it. I think in a way you have to do that. It's like, I don't know, 10 years ago I thought, well, I've hit the expiration date. I've got it written on my back with this world. It's like, year 2000, done. And so, so it's just good to kind of, check within of where there's a clinging to an idea or something that you think of this world as your salvation. And as you're checking that, you can actually feel the stress of it. If you're really honest, you can actually feel the stress of wanting anything to be a certain way, wanting people to act a certain way. Wanting to be respected, wanting to be loved, it's all stressful. And this all comes within. It all comes within these experiences of true connection. We already are that. But while the mesmerization is identified with, it's a practice. It is a practice. It's a spiritual practice. Forgiveness is a spiritual practice. And then it just gets so inspiring, because even really on the big things that just seem so unsurmountable, and that's why you have to practice, so that you can become convinced that it's the only way out for real. It's the only way out for real. And then it gets very, very inspiring and very, very happy. I was looking up some things last night on forgiveness. See if I can do this. I thought these were just absolutely beautiful. And profound and clear. And this is where I say, at a certain point, you got to look at these words and you got to feel them. You got to know that, okay. So Jesus is saying, you who want peace can find it only by complete forgiveness. Okay, that's pretty clear. Forgiveness is the healing of the perception of separation. Correct perception of your brother is necessary because minds have chosen to see themselves as separate. That's why A Course in Miracles is a pathway of awakening through the power of relationships, because the mirroring is so strong, and as we use each other for forgiveness to see where my mind is, it's so powerful, because you know exactly where you're at within yourself by how you think of your brother. It's so simple. It's like, oh my God. And in fact, there is nothing to forgive. It says there is nothing to forgive. Oh, there's a brain. But that's what happens. It's like we call ourselves miracle workers, because when you say there is nothing to forgive, it's because there's nothing actually happening in form. It's a projection of the tiny mad idea, which is not true. So you're basically forgiving the untruth, not the truth. And that's where the rubber meets the road, especially when you're in tough situations or you're seeing the world's falling, whatever it's doing right now. But the beautiful thing is if you can use that, if you can use not only how you see your brother, but how you see the world, how you watch the news, what's happening inside of you, because there are a ton of assumptions in there. A ton of assumptions. And that's why we want to come back to this very, very, very most important learning, is that the projection is all that you're seeing if you're identified with the ego. The way that we can use those things is we can use it for forgiveness. That's the only reason it's shaking so intently right now. It's almost like, come on, let's go now. This is too much. You know what I mean? And that's what I meant by, I got it when Byron Katie said that about Hitler, because the pressure was so extreme. The pressure was so extreme. And as we deal with our own things in our own mind, the pressures in our own mind, we can liberate those thoughts that are not true. We can bring them back into the light. into our own liberation. And I don't know, there's something about that to me, just my experience has been it almost like if you look at it like a game. How do you win the game? You stop playing it. You know, you stop giving it the power to affect you. But you can't metaphysically ghost it. You can't pretend and throw pink spiritual paint all over it and not be honest about how you feel, because those feelings are so suppressed and they're so locked down underneath into the subconscious, so to speak, that as we practice this forgiveness and we allow ourselves to feel how we feel about one another, perhaps, then we're allowing that to start to bubble up into the light of awareness, which is what we want. That's called healing. It's like taking the Band-Aid off of the spiritual idea of I need to be happy all the time and I need to, make sure you're okay with me. It's very weak. It's very weak. It will leave you feeling completely impotent. But to come together and say, I don't like the way I feel, okay, well, let's just be with that feeling then. Instead of pushing it away, which we've done for eons, and pushing it back down into the darkness. No, come. This is my only function here, is to forgive the belief that you have power over me. You don't have power over me. And my running from you or fear from you or trying to fix you or trying to make you feel okay keeps that authentic forgiveness from happening. And so if forgiveness can actually bring you everything you want, meaning a state of pure happiness and peace and contentment, which is all the things you think you were trying to get on your own, which is so difficult to be a human. And so we want to identify with that naturalness of, wow, I already have it. Well, those are nice words. You don't have it. You don't have it. Okay, you don't have it unless you're consistently happy. You don't have it. So there's things to alchemize and to forgive and to take it from that heaviness. But we have to allow that heaviness, right? And that's forgiveness. It's like, okay, I'm going to take it off from you. I'm going to pull it back here. I'm going to team up with the part of my mind that Jesus says I'm connected to. Maybe I don't always feel it, but I'm going to start to have faith in that and try it on and experiment with it to see what the result is, because it has to be based on results, right? Otherwise we wouldn't do it. So there has to be some beautiful results that begin to occur as we hold hands with the light and say, okay, this guy really seems like a jerk, but I'm gonna pull my projection off from that and know that this all stems from that same tricky little idea.
Yeah, I just felt to share something around that because when I was in Portugal, I had this profound experience one morning where it felt like I woke up before the ego did. And in that space, I saw was like these flashcards flipping, and on each of the flashcards was a picture, and the cards were getting flipped really fast, and what I felt from that was like the ego was waiting for me to like hook on to one of the pictures. Yeah, felt that way, like, wow, which one are you going to hook on to today? Mm-hmm. And that has stayed with me in my mind, like how the ego is doing that with the world to wait to see what we're going to hook on to, to make a story out of it, to think we're a victim, to think we've done something wrong. And so the other day when I was looking at CNN on my phone, and I was just kind of moving through the images, I was reminded of that experience in Portugal, and so I'm looking at the different headlines. It's like, okay, which one are you going to bite onto today? Yeah. Which one? Mm. And I mentioned this in the meeting last weekend, the one that has like hooked me is the racial injustice card, and having an awareness of that, I've just started like really using it this week. Like, just, okay, I still believe that there's racial injustice. People are, being discriminated against. I was discriminated against, growing up on an Indian reservation. I had so much evidence. So there it is again. It's in my mind, and I'm seeing so much of it out there and in the headlines, and I'm reacting. I can feel the charge that I still have with it. So my prayer this week has been like, okay, I still believe this. I'm willing to just, be wrong about it. I really, because I don't like how I feel. And it's just been so perfect in that, the right movies have come in, the right just thoughts around, is it true or not true? And one of them that has really struck me because it's so profound, and it kind of shook the core of my being, my belief that I was a Native American in the world being discriminated against was, in my tribe, the Shoshone-Bannock, there was this massacre like 100 years ago, just a little over 100 years ago, on the Utah-Idaho border, and there were, basically it was when the Mormons just moved into the area, and there was like a really hard winter, and the Indians were camped there too, and there wasn't any food, and then they started like butchering the cattle that belonged to the Mormon settlers, and so the settlers were upset, and they contacted the government, and the government sent a group of cavalry out there, and it was like the dead of winter, and there was just complete slaughter of this village, 300 people or whatever, and it wasn't one of those Wounded Knee situations where everyone knows about it. It was sort of more of a, let's just try to hide this and pretend like it didn't
the village of Native Americans.
Yeah, they were slaughtered by the cavalry. And so it was kind of like this really intense story in my mind that really held a lot of sort of evidence around mistreatment. And the thing that happened was that my mother's Native American, and on my father's side they're white, and they have a Mormon history. Wow. And if you know about Mormons, they keep really like close genealogy, like going clear back to England when the Mormons first came. My parents, my father and his mom and dad had it that far back, and I was looking through some of the records on my grandfather's side, and what I saw was that his people were in the Cache Valley, the same valley where this massacre occurred, and it was probably my great grandfather's family that complained about the cows being killed. And it was such a moment in my mind where I couldn't be the victim of this anymore, because I was on the victimizer side. There's a sort of part of my background that was on the victimizer side, and that having that sort of realization was such a one of those profound moments of a break in a belief of who I was and what I could really say about victim and victimizer.
Wow. Yeah, because no matter what it is, it's a call for love, right? No matter what it is, it's the flip side. It's the flip side of the opposite. It's the opposite side of the coin. If it's good and bad, if you're stuck in good and bad, it's always going to be the same. There's no solution in it. There's no solution, and I think that's what we're being called into on a deeper and deeper level now. Is the true solution. The only solution, is forgiveness. This is what the Master says. And so then it's just, okay, well, if you don't agree with that, then the Course just isn't your path, and that's cool. But that is what is being presented to us, right? In such a profound way. And then the only way to know of the truthfulness, meaning experientially, is to practice it.
And even in this week, just even going how it applies to what was coming up for me this week, because I was noticing that I felt that there was an injustice that occurred with the killing of this policeman, is that I really wanted to use it fully. Like, I want to use this fully for forgiveness. I don't know how, but then the movies start coming in, then the readings start coming in, then, using the tools. What do I still believe? And I just, really saw it as some kind of rocket fuel. Like, I just want to use all of it. I'm going to put it under this rocket and really use that to lift me out of
the threads, the last threads, yeah.
Yeah, because it felt intense. It just has that feeling, so I'm going to use it for the spirit, to help lift me out of that belief that I've held on to for probably lifetimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it all stems, it all stems back to that. This is how the projection has played for you. We all have our own ways that it's played out. And you can call it, oh, this happened, I'm carrying this with me because this happened to me as a child. No. It happened way before you were a child. And it's good to trace those things back and release those, because that's part of the release of the misidentification. So it's not that we don't, disregard the patterns, but it's great to know what their source is, where they were made. They don't really have a source, but where it was made is that tiny mad idea of projection. And because it's so mesmerizing, we all seem like we're so here and we're so real. But where do we really connect? We really connect in experience, don't we? That's why bodies hanging out together is that's comfort for the ego, but it's just absolutely nothing for the spirit. It's like we want to feel each other's heart. We want to feel that call for awakening. And in that, then there's like this kind of effervescence that starts to happen. Like you get all sparked up about forgiveness, because it should be inspiring, really. I mean, it might seem like a drag at first because you're not quite convinced that it works or that you should let that person off the hook. But yeah, so it's a profound journey inward, and the ego is so complicated. It has so much complication, and it's always trying to figure something out or do something or achieve something. And that's why in Alchemy of Awakening we always talk about the feeling. Like, you must really take the time to be with yourself, whether you're sitting in this room and there's some subtle anxiety, whether you're even in your own space and you still feel this subtle kind of, either it's a voice in your head giving you commands, or it's this subtle feeling that something's not quite right. It's like, be with that feeling. Don't judge that feeling. Allow that feeling, because that's a belief that something needs to be fixed. That feeling, on top of it, are all kinds of beliefs that this needs to be contained, fixed, and healed. When really, it just needs to be allowed up into your awareness, because of the power of your own mind can absorb it. But not while the power of your mind is being used to think something that isn't even true about what's happening within you. Anything that's happening within you is worthy of your attention, to just be with yourself. You know how we want everybody to be with us and love us unconditionally? We have to love ourselves. That's not quite right. To be present with ourselves and to practice this forgiveness, you become the love that you are. You're not going to cultivate love. It's going to start to, kind of like the fog and the clouds start to lift as you start to practice forgiveness, and you start to see for real. Like, oh, wow, I did all of that to myself. I mean, it just becomes laughable. Like, all I needed to do was turn and leave. I didn't need to sit there and get into some kind of big conversation with somebody that I actually didn't feel was for me. I don't, there's so many things as a spiritual person. You think, oh, I need to, sit here for an hour and listen to somebody go off about something. And they're not asking any real question. They're not asking for a miracle. They're not asking you to join them in prayer. Say, you got to really look at these things and these ideas of being spiritual. They can be quite a trap. So I think forgiveness is the greatest thing ever. And, well, it's the only thing worthy of taking everything from us that is not true and dissolving it into the light of who we are. And that's why I want when we join together, this is a prayer of, okay, help me go deeper for the next week. Help me go deeper into these things that are being shared so that I too can feel a more consistency of who I am in truth. So I too can truly join with you in true presence and not be judging and sizing you up and thinking you need this or that. The unhealed healer is rampant. The unhealed healer is just like that constant thinking you know what somebody else needs. Because you're not being present enough with your own feeling of unlovability or unworthiness or not being good enough. The ego is the thought of unworthiness. It's the thought of unlovability. It is the thought of lack. And as we're identified with that, then we will have that experience. And as we pull our identification off from it, we'll have the experience of truth. But we have to seemingly say, okay, I want the peace of God more than I want this identification with pain and suffering and concern and worry. You think about it, concern and worry, I've never, ever, ever done anything for anybody. I mean, you think you're a good friend because you're concerned about somebody. No, you're not. You're reinforcing that they have a problem. You're actually believing that whatever they're going through is hard and fast, instead of being able to breathe the light and the love and the presence into whatever that is. And the Spirit will show you how to be with somebody who feels that they are caught in something. But you're not going to decide as a person what that other person needs. So the clearing out of forgiveness, the forgiven mind, you start to show up in ways that you would never ever have anticipated that you would be used. Such beautiful ways, simple ways. So let me see what else I have here. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I would encourage you to, if you have a search on your computer of the Course, just look up the word forgiveness. And really see what Jesus is saying about forgiveness. It's just phenomenal. It says forgiveness offers you everything that you want. It offers you everything that you want. It's like, you just have to be really honest about what it is you want.
What does it say? What would you want that forgiveness does not offer?
Yeah.
So beautiful.
Yeah, and
that whole
it goes right into
as easy as breathing. Where is that?
I
it says, "What is
somebody sent it to me
forgiveness?"
this
Right?
morning.
Oh, that would be a great way to end if you could read that for us. That would be.
Maybe I could turn my phone on.
Yeah. But the ego just doesn't want to believe that, right? It's just like, no, it's got to be something else in form. It has to be in form. Like, oh, form is so overrated. So overrated. Okay. Yeah. What could you want that forgiveness cannot give? Do you want peace? Forgiveness offers it. Do you want happiness, a quiet mind, a certainty of purpose, and a sense of worth and beauty that transcends the world? Do you want care and safety and the warmth of sure protection always? Do you want a quietness that cannot be disturbed, a gentleness that never can be hurt, a deep, abiding comfort, and a rest so perfect it can never be upset? All this forgiveness offers you and more. It sparkles on your eyes as you awake and gives you joy with which to meet the day. It soothes your forehead while you sleep and rests upon your eyelids, so you see no dream of fear and evil, malice and attack. And when you wake again, it offers you another day of happiness and peace. All this forgiveness offers you and more. Forgiveness lets the veil be lifted up that hides the face of Christ from those who look with unforgiving eyes upon the world. It lets you recognize the Son of God and clear your memory of all dead thoughts so that remembrance of your Father can arise across the threshold of your mind. What would you want forgiveness cannot give? What gifts but these are worthy to be sought? What fancied value, trivial effect of transient promise, never to be kept, can hold more hope than what forgiveness brings? Why would you seek an answer other than the answer that will answer everything? And this is the question for today. May we take it with us. Why would you seek an answer other than the answer that will answer everything? Here is the perfect answer, given in imperfect questions, meaningless requests, half-hearted willingness to hear, and less than halfway diligence and partial trust. Here is the answer! Exclamation point. Seek for it no more. You will not find another one instead.
Is there an exercise to understand better what we have not yet forgiven? I know, like, I only forgave my dad a few years ago, and I thought, okay, now I've forgiven everything, and then I realized I hadn't forgiven myself, and been working on that, self-love, self-compassion, and then I don't know what else. I always think I've forgiven everything, but then there's really things that I haven't that are maybe not within my awareness. How do you really determine what you have not forgiven so that you can work on that?
Usually it's pretty obvious by the way you feel, and if there's any kind of discontent or upset or mild irritation. So, and then I think the very best thing, the most helpful thing is to work with something in the moment that it's happening. And certainly if there's something from your past that wakes you up at 3 a.m, it's happening now, right? Because you're experiencing it now.
You know I wake up at 3
You're why I posted that song that day. This will soothe you. So I think that's the beauty, and also it's the it's like really giving yourself the attention that you need, and not busying over it or thinking that you don't matter. You matter, and the moment that you have any kind of concern or upset is the time that you have to take and say, you know what, this is important. I have to be with this for a while. And because we are so at one with the power of all that is, as we start to defer over to the truth instead of to the illusion of trying to fix something, then we will start to feel that power heal us, heal those misperceptions, because we can't do it. The thought system that created itself cannot heal itself. So it's like we have to start really going deeply into this call for help. I think it comes right back around from where we started this conversation today. Is there's a deep seemingly collective call, and it's our call to start paying attention to our connection, to start calling out for our mother, our father, our source, and say, heal me. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this, but I want to do this because I don't like the way I feel. And I feel called, like you. I think you feel called towards something. Obviously you do. You feel called towards something that we can't see, right? We can't see it, but we feel this, like, it's almost like, the hummingbirds will go from South America all the way up north to North America. They feel a call. They just go. It's like we all feel this call. So I feel like that's the main thing, is to take that presence of mind and say, this moment matters, actually. I'm not feeling okay. And then, because the ego is always wanting to give a response or a reaction to somebody who's calling on you to do something or whatever, and you don't have to. You can say, I need to take some time. I need to be with this. I don't know what's going on. That's loving yourself. You know what I mean? That's like saying, I'm important. And where does it say in the Course about the ego says that you're actually, you don't take the time, or you're unworthy to give yourself this full attention? Like there's an unworthiness, but we want to take that unworthiness and be with it. The energy of that is intense, and most of it's out of our awareness, right? And it creeps in a little bit at a time when the reflection over here tells me I'm not good enough. But that's just a belief I have. So once you know that about projection, like, oh, they're just reflecting to me what I already believe. And it's not their fault. They're actually showing me. That's why there's no appropriate response to a brother than gratitude, because that image on the screen is showing you where you are ready. If it's on its way up, it's on its way out. If it's on its way up, it's on its way out. But we have to welcome it in a way. And that's very difficult because it doesn't feel good. People just want to feel good. If I don't feel good, I must not be in the spirit. No, you're doing your damn work. It's like this healing work is it's gritty, it's tough, it's hard. As you turn the ship towards home, it's not comfortable. And people just, the ego just wants to be comfortable. That's why it runs around and tries to get comfortable places, comfortable relationships, comfortable cash in the bank, so it can think that it's safe, and it's not at all. But that's what we're turning away from now and finding our true comfort, which is within. And Jesus said, I will leave you a comforter. And that comforter is who you are. It's never left. It's just so out of awareness. So
I can give you a really good example of how it works for me, just in terms of how do you know when there's something like to work on or something to look at. Because last Saturday's gathering, I was sharing something, and I was sharing something, and then after the gathering, I was needing to listen to the recording, and I could feel like there was some sort of like resistance to listening to what I shared from last Saturday. But I thought, okay, I feel like there's a resistance. I actually, kind of want to delete that part of where I shared. So I went ahead and I was listening. I was listening to myself talking on the recording, and I could feel there was a contraction. There was a resistance first, and then there was a contraction, and I was listening to me talking on the recording, and then what I heard, like what I was listening to was in the recording was I was talking, and Suzanne was going and what I got in touch with from that one situation, because I noticed I didn't like how I felt. I was like, wow, I'm really having a contraction about this. She's saying, and what I believe that means is hurry up and finish what you need to say. I really believe that. I mean, I could feel that I believed that. I felt like that was something that I even believed growing up, like children should be seen and not heard. That was how I grew up. My parents, we weren't supposed to speak when people came over and, they had their friends over, whatever, like get lost. So it's just carried over. And then, so I was sitting with that belief, and then I saw Suzanne. We started talking, and I said, there's something I need to raise up here. This is what, when you said, this is how I interpreted that, like hurry up, time's valuable, whatever, should be seen and not heard. And she's like, that's not what I was thinking at all. I was just really interested in what you had to say. But, you see how that played out? Like I really had to look at that, what that was bringing up for me. There's a long-held belief. I've continued to hold on to it, and it's coming up now for me to let go of, actually.
Wow.
You know, like
That's
and
great.
I feel like even just bringing it up with Suzanne, there was a bit of a shake there, you know, like she's gonna think, you know, yeah, you don't have anything to say, you know, like shut, you know, I don't know. This is the thing. I feel like I was facing sort of that either ridicule or judgment, or my own. It was all my own
All this
ridicule and judgment, and so it was like having to face that in my mind, but with a mighty companion, like.
And I love it when it's that obvious because, you know, I always, when somebody brings me something and they think that I was thinking something, I always like to clarify just to show the insanity
Yeah.
of the ego. You know, it's just so insane. But this is, you know, and to be able to say, hey, you know, this is my, and she said this was what I was perceiving, which is so important. It's not really what's happening, but this is what I was perceiving. And being able to see how it's been with her whole life, right? It's like, no, because it's your perception. You're gonna see it. The projection is gonna be there out of the belief.
Yeah.
And then the perception, you know, it's like so the tiny mad idea is all that's ever playing out here. It's very, very simple. And that's why we're so turned on about projection, forgiveness. Projection, forgiveness. Simple. Game over.
Yeah.
Happiness at hand.
Don't
There you go.
complicate it.
And it was so beautiful too, because you had some parable to share with me about, you know, how you felt that at one time, and you know,
my God, all the time.
yeah, like
I
in
mean,
this-
all the time. I mean, the first several years, well, maybe even more than several years in community. Well, first my training was to zip it because I thought I knew everything, and so and so it was a deep training. But underneath it was a deep insecurity of, you know, whenever I would speak, I would think somebody was wanting me to just get on with it, like what? Because when I was a child, I was punished every time I knew something. There was a punishment that came in. Like I knew what I knew, but I was being, you know, punished for it or put down for it. And so almost when the truth starts to arise out of me, I didn't want to say it because from that pattern. But that's how my projection played out of unworthiness and fear, you know. So we just don't forget the inception of where this all stems from. If you can keep that in your mind when something seems to be playing out that upsets you or worries you, then you're halfway there, because it's like, okay, all right, here it is. It's the tiny mad idea again. Dun, 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 dun.
Simplified. Remember the guy in the truck that was driving by and we thought he was saying, "Get in your house"?
Oh yeah,
Oh my God.
this is really funny too, because we were, I don't know, in Ajijic there's these vehicles that go around and they're saying something and they're saying it in Spanish. You can't understand
Sounds
it.
pretty hard.
But somebody said to me, "Oh, I think they're telling everybody to stay in their house because of the virus," right? And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And then I'm talking to somebody who actually knows what they're saying, and they're actually looking for scrap metal. Now, I think that pretty much sizes it up.
That was perfect.
That pretty much sizes it up, doesn't it?
That was perfect.
We had
It's
that
like-
the other night,
We
and
think we know.
I finally went over to the neighbor and asked him, what was that truck saying? He said, they're selling fresh bread.
Yes! You think, oh my God, I got to get inside, you know? Would you like some pawn? Yeah, right. So it's beautiful and we do laugh at it, you know. It's like, it does become funny. It does, and that the only virus is the virus of the tiny mad idea. That's it.
So really, forgiveness is the cure for fear.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Unequivocally. It actually shows you that fear is not real. And you've worked a lot with medicine, okay? So you know that the fear can come up really strong, and maybe you had really wonderful journeys and never had any fear, but I think that that's the beauty of medicine too, that you can start to work with this thing we call fear, because guess what, everybody? It's not real. So as you sit with it and you stop trying to get away from it, the only monster is in your head. It's not under the bed. It's like, okay, then let me sit with you, this thing I call fear. Let me sit with this energy. It's just an energy of separation. And so, and I would think that that would be great training for you, because as that starts to arise, in medicine journeys and in life, if you resist it, it will persist. It will get bigger. So as you just surrender and you hold it in this spaciousness of the presence of who you are, then it can come into the light of day and into the light of the mind and truly be forgiven. And you go, oh my God, I've been running from this fear and this emptiness. Fear is the umbrella for all things. Concern, worry, whatever, wanting something, needing something.
Yeah. To add to that, because I don't know if all of you have seen that movie Revolver. But there's a beautiful scene near the end of the movie where the main character, he's basically having to meet his foe, his lifetime foe. And, it's like where you least want to go is where you're going to find him, meaning the ego. So it's even like noticing, like for me with the recording, like, oh, I don't want to listen to me talk. In the recording, I knew in that moment that resistance was a cue for me to actually go towards it, as much as I didn't want to, so I think you can really use that noticing of something you don't want to do as okay, there must be some healing there for me. Not that I have to do it, but there's some healing there. There's something there for ready for my release.
And what's ready, what you're coming towards is the light. It's like you're dismantling and dissolving this belief in fear. Can you imagine how awesome that is? You want to be a spiritual warrior, be a spiritual warrior for that. Like, okay, I'm going to face this. Not in, I'm going to combat it, I'm going to heal it, I'm going to fix it. No, I'm just going to actually sit with it. Sit with this uncomfortable feeling. Breathe through it. Let it be without my story wrapped all over it as if I know what it is, because the ego has to think it knows what things are so it can feel safe, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do. You want to be very raw. Okay, I'm just going to be here in this intensity. And be with it with the awareness. There's an awareness. It's not like you're being with it and identifying with it. You're allowing it, but you're not identifying with it. You're allowing it with this presence of who you are, Holy Spirit, whatever you choose to, or whatever you feel resonant with. To me, it's just spaciousness and wisdom. Like, okay, there is a presence here. It's always been with me my whole life. I've ignored it, but, it's here. And I'm going to allow this without the story. Without even calling it fear is really very important, too, because then it's just energy. And you're not doing it to try to get rid of it. You're doing it because you're worthy to sit there and hold the space for yourself.
It worked for me.
We have so many tools. I think we have so many helpful, supportive tools. There's no excuse for walking in unforgiveness. There's no excuse for that anymore, because we have all the tools we need, from the levels of mind to medicine to just having these gatherings to, there's so many things, to being with each other and just being in prayer with your sister or brother. Not trying to give them advice. They don't want your advice. They want they want the presence of God. So just show up in that as best you can. And then watch where it's flying in your head. Oh, they need this. They don't know. Let me just be present. Let me just be here.
I was I woke up this morning and I was struggling, and I was sitting with it, and as I was walking here, there was a lot of resentment, there was a lot of anger, I was kicking so many baby Jesuses on the way, and I knew I was doing it, and I knew it was my stuff, but I thought, okay, just go with it. And I thought, well, maybe Anya, you need to join, maybe, it was all over the place. And as I'm sitting here, I'm just sitting here, and you started talking, and I could feel it all sort of melting. I could feel it just all sort of melting. And and I could see the word ridiculousness of it all. And so I am totally back in peace and totally loving all baby Jesuses again.
Thank you. Thank you, Anya. That's why we do come together.
Yeah.
It's like a reminder, right?
Yeah.
We remind each other. You just become a reminder of the truth.
Yeah, it's not real.
So perhaps we'll just close with a prayer of gratitude. That we've been given everything we need. That any question we might have is answered. And that we are truly loved by an unseen power that wants to give us everything. And that everything is a forgiven mind, a mind that holds no judgment, opinions, or assumptions, and just shows up in divine relevance and whatever the last few strips of this dream movie is, that it's spent in happiness and joy and true connection, and that we avail our minds to only that we let go of things that are no longer supporting the truth of who we are, that we have the courage to just let them go, see where we've compromised because we think we need somebody or something. That it's time now, it's time to really bring in a seriousness in a light way to this deepening into the abstract love of our Father. Because forgiveness only brings us closer and closer to that true experience that we have never left our home. So I feel like this little group, we just hold hands in visible hands of light and go throughout this next days till we meet again, and that the prayer is to open up deeper and deeper and into being courageous, into being forthright and committed to something that is worthy of your commitment. It's the only thing that's worthy of our commitment. There is only one relationship, Jesus says it clearly, there is only one relationship, and that is with God, and we use each other, we turn our relationships from special into holy so that we can see our own divinity reflected in each other's eyes. And allow that love in, allow that happiness and that joy, that truth, that simplicity of what is already here. Just uncover it, just uncover everything that's in its way. That's, the Course, that's what it teaches us, is how to do that. And if you don't know how, then ask how. It's beautiful. The Spirit will give you everything you need. Once the Spirit knows that you're serious, you will get everything you need. And yeah, it might get a little rocky. And we pray for that courage as it rocks. But it's undoing all the rocks. It's undoing all the hardness. It's undoing all the stuff that we try so desperately to protect ourselves from. It goes up like a puff of nothingness.